Cynthia with Texas Brew Radio. We are on our second interview for our March Madness. It's my birthday month, and I celebrate songwriters every single day. So why not use the month to play on a little, we'll dribble in a little basketball here and throw some music in that scene. We have Bad Boy Leroy in the studio with me today. And that song that you just heard, our station is the only station in the entire world that you can hear Blue Tick Hound. It's coming out May 10th, I do believe. That was right, Leroy?
I think it's May 11th. It's one of I'd have to look, and the only way I can.
May 10th or 11th. Anyway, it's coming out in May. I'm excited for y'all to hear it. I love Bad Boy Leroy's music. They're all his songs are catchy and always have a whole vibe. He did win third place in our Texas State Songwriters Championship finale for last year, 2023. Bad Boy Leroy, tell us a little bit about who you are and how long you've been performing.
Wow. Who I am, how long I've been performing. Let's think about this for a second. Well, I guess I've been singing probably since I was, 3 or 4 years old. Backseat of my mom's car, riding down the road, George Strait blaring on the radio. That's probably where I started really getting into music. In fact, I remember one time we were going to Center, Texas, and I was probably 5 or 6 years old at the time, and I was curious about music, so I asked my mom. I said, "Mom, does George Strait make good money, singing?" And she just laughed at me and she said, "Oh yeah." I was like, "Well, that's what I want to do for a living." And then she said, "You can do anything you put your mind to." And I'll never forget that conversation. Performing, I grew up in church, so I guess that was my first probably stage is being in the choir or singing solos during the services or whatever. Of course, I knew all the hymns at the time, and I think that was my first stage. uh, but
Right.
I think, yeah.
I think that was mine too. I think that regardless of whether people believe in the religious structure, it is a good format for kids for structure for sure, and definitely does get them introduced to music.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that is actually, I would say church is probably a good foundation of my musical background because um, my grandmother, she played piano, and when I was at church, I would see we had a regular piano player, and then I remember my grandma being called to do it one time because our current piano player um, couldn't make it that week or whatever. So my grandma got up there and played. I was like, "Wow, grandma, I didn't even know you could play piano, right?" Well, so anyway, after that, I took a special influence or a special interest into learning how to play piano. I think that was probably my intro to music. Of course, I
How
never
many
took any.
instruments do you play?
Oh, I don't want to say this too boldly, but I can play probably pretty much any string instrument. Even if I haven't played it, I just need a little time with it to learn how it's tuned and figure. I can play it pretty quickly.
So
But
we
the ones I can play fluently, obviously guitar. That's my primary. I learned on the keyboard. Um, I can play cello and bass. So those are the four that I feel comfortable playing.
Nice. I wanted to be a saxophone player because I have a lot of passion and soul, but they force you to start out on the clarinet for a reed instrument. And I was third chair. I went to marching band, state marching band with a little feather in my hat that I absolutely despised. I was a tomboy, so that was just not my vibe at all. Like I was such an angry clarinet player when it came to marching bands. But we did make it to state, and man, I remember I used to we used to go camping all the time. Like we had everything as kids. We'd take the four-wheelers to the campground. We'd take whatever we wanted to take to the campground, we would take to the campground, including my clarinet. And it was always a cool thing to like have that, because when you're at the campground, a lot of like people who have that freer heart and freer lifestyle spend a lot of time in nature. And so you'll find people with instruments out there. And I remember, because like Home on the Range is one of the things you learn as one of your first songs in band. And all those old timers knew that. And so I'd be out there jamming around a campfire with old timers playing my clarinet, and they got their banjos and guitars, and we're just playing Home on the Range, and people are singing. And music really is something that people should get their kids involved with, especially if they have, attention deficit disorders and like stuff like that, just because like it's a release for your mind. And a lot of that is just overstimulation. Um,
Speaking of band, I have to tell you a story. You made me think about my first. So, in school, your elementary school, we didn't have band. We had a band class, but mostly you just went in there and you beat on a couple of little drums or played with like all or learned what instruments are. Really, you didn't really learn how to play music. At least that was my elementary school. And then, so I think sixth grade was the first year you could join band. Right? And
right.
I had already been playing, piano for a little bit. Wasn't really, I wouldn't say I was, I could play the piano, but I could play some songs on the piano. Well, anyway, I was excited. Of the first year of going to school, I was ready and like looking forward to my first day of school because I had signed up for band the previous year, and so I had always wanted to play the drums at the time. Like I was very into the percussion, man. And my first day, I get in there, and the band teacher, she asks, "So we're going to pass around a piece of paper, and everybody write down which, fill out your name, all that good stuff, um, and then write down the instruments that you want to play." I forgot how many there were. I only put one. There was only one I wanted to play, and it was drums. So that was the first day's homework. The second day, excited, wanted ready to go back to school. Now, mind you, this is not normal for me. I never wanted to go to school. In fact, all the years prior, I was doing everything in my power not to go. I think most kids are that way though. But anyway, second day, I go in and she's giving out assignments. So she's giving out the instrument assignments, and I was just sitting there waiting. And I'm S, so I'm somewhere way down the line of the chart, right? Last name starts with an S, so I had to wait to almost the end. And anyway, she finally came around to me, and she asked, or she said, uh, "Leroy, you're going to be playing the flute." I said, "The flute? I didn't put that on my paper. I only put drums." She said, "We have too many drummers as is." And do you know what my response was to her? I said, I said, "Ma'am, can I go to the office and change my schedule?" She said, "Certainly." So that's exactly what I did. I went there and uh, I got out of band. And I never took
Oh,
another band
man.
after that.
So
So,
when did you pick up music again? If you
oh, my mom, she had always had like a piano or keyboard laying around. And my grandma, she was always there helping me learn to play that. So, of
They
course,
told me I could not play the flute because I was born with a teardrop in my lip, and I would have to hold it on the side. And I was like, I apparently was born to be different. I can still play it. And they were like, no, not properly. We're not going to let you. I was like, whatever. Stuck with the clarinet still.
Yeah. It was kind of a depressing story, I guess, but I mean, think about it. I was really interested in going to school. Like, I wanted to go to school. I had a reason for it. And to get there and only be denied the very thing I wanted to do, that it was depressing.
Yeah, but look
Anyway,
at you now. Look at you now. Like, had you been able to do that, it might have like just gotten out of your system and you wouldn't be doing it now.
yeah, or I'd be a good drummer. Who
Yeah, I
knows?
mean, well, you can still do that. That opportunity is still there.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I tell people that all
Get
the
some of that
time.
frustration out.
Yeah.
I was walking, I was actually working in the garage because not everyone was awake yet yesterday, and I caught the dog taking herself a little drumstick out to the backyard. And I thought I saved the drumstick only to find that she had already finished chewing up the other one. She was done with that one and coming back for number two. So I was like, you know what? It's not like they're going to play with mismatched drumsticks anyway. Just take the dang drumsticks.
Yeah.
Oh, it's crazy. So, so you pretty much performing most of your life, and you got inspired by your grandmother and your mom. It
Yep.
sounds like. Who inspired your style of music though? Like what segued you in from being, in band and choir to where you are now?
So I guess that is so. That's a loaded question because I mean,
I realized that afterwards. I was like, okay, I was going to pause you and say, hey, don't let that go too far into your mind.
yeah.
I meant to say just styles, like who inspired your style, like what artists were you listening to. I don't want to set anybody up for a trap, but I'm telling you, my mind goes deep, and I speak it freely. So don't allow me to ever let you step in muddy water.
Uh,
I want the water to be drinkable.
well, let me just walk through, I guess, my music history because my influences are, they're well known. Like I said, my mom was a huge George Strait fan, so she had all of his tapes at the time, cassette tapes. I don't know if you remember those. Rewind. Um,
I
but yeah, so that was George
remember
Strait
trying to
was.
fix them.
Yeah, I know.
Where's
And
the pencil at? It was the only time we actually wanted to use the pencil, I'm sure.
yeah, yeah, or a pen. You get certain pens you could do it with too. Yeah. Uh, but yeah, so George Strait was on repeat, or rewind, I should say. And then she also, had Mickey Gilley, Conway Twitty. Those were my country influences. And I don't want to, at a young age, it was cool. I wouldn't say this now, but New Kids on the Block is probably the ones that really got me into like music, man. Because we used to dance with them and sing all their songs. But yeah, that kind of passed really quickly though.
Have
I
you
grew up a
ever
little bit.
brought that up on an interview before?
No, I have not.
I was just gonna say, wow, I'm glad that you have the comfort level with me that you can just let it out, because that's awesome. And I'm sure that, like, had you said that 20 years ago, your career probably would have just been over 10
Yeah,
years ago.
but
But I love
I
it.
mean,
Like,
they got the kids, and that's I was a real young kid at the time, and so anybody doing something cool, well, back then was cool. The New Kids on the Block were cool for me.
right? And a
Yeah,
lot of us could even just relate to the title of their band.
yeah,
I think a lot of that draw was because a lot of us were the new kid on the block,
yeah. It's
And
hard to say, but it was they were definitely for a while there. They were definitely a pretty good influence in my life.
so when
But
you got your first guitar, like who bought you that?
Oh, my grandmother bought me my first guitar. Um, I didn't learn to play it because I didn't have anybody that knew how to tune it, right? So I never really learned to play it, and I didn't know how to tune it. And back in the day, we didn't have Google, so um, learning to play was a challenge. But my grandma, she was there teaching me on the keyboard, right? So I was learning that direction, but not on my guitar. But
Right. I was 1 year I was a model for quite a while. And 1 year I just put on Facebook that I wanted a guitar, and I'll be danged if like an hour later one didn't show up to my birthday party. And I taught myself how to tune it because obviously like 10 years ago there was tools that you could use. There were apps, tuning apps. But I learned the first string and that was about as far as I got. Like my patience I don't know, I've never had the patience to just sit around and just do things that seemed like they were a waste of time. And at that point, I was like, yeah, I'm never going to get this. This is too complicated.
yeah, hey, we can't end on New Kids on the Block. I'm not leaving everybody with that. So I'm going to continue with my musical influences now because they definitely grew after that. All right. Um, uh, so yeah, country music was always a consistent, thing in my life. So late '80s, early '90s, anything that was popular country music, I was listening to, and some, some Texas country music was, also big in my life at the time. But I guess my brother turned me on to. It's probably his friend mostly, but my brother turned me on to AC/DC, Metallica, and so I started getting into the rock and roll side of music at probably 10 years old or so. Uh, Trying to think of who. Oh, the Georgia Satellites. That was really, we really loved some of their songs. Um, ZZ Top was introduced to ZZ Top. How could I forget them? Man, that's like some of my favorites. But yeah, so they were, big during those early '90s, late '80s, early '90s, huge bands, and or making a name for themselves at the time, at least. So I had a mixture there of country and rock and roll. And when I joined the Air Force, I remember the first time I heard Stevie Ray Vaughan. It was a, we. So I worked at this. We had a civilian that worked with us, and he was a supply guy. So he used to sit back in his office listening to music all day and ordering stuff, And he would always blare his like radio so we could hear it. And Stevie Ray Vaughan came on one day, and it was, I had just picked up the guitar, so I was in the Air Force. I just bought my first guitar, in fact, um, and I was really, committed to learning it. I bought some books. Still, back in the day, before Google, um, I bought some books, and I was every day after work, I was going back to the barracks and just sitting there and playing guitar for a couple of hours, or at least trying. But anyway, so I'd heard Stevie Ray Vaughan, "Empty Arms." I'll never forget the name of the song. And we were just sitting in the break room talking, me and some of the other troops at the time, and I stopped talking to them and I was listening. And it was the first time I ever got up and walked back and talked to that guy. I really didn't even know him, the supply guy back there. I said, "Hey man, who is that playing?" He said, "Oh, that's Stevie Ray Vaughan." I said, "Stevie Ray Vaughan, I have got to go check him out." The very day, that right after work, I went straight to the PX. Uh, well, it's called BX, but I was on Army bases for so long, I started saying PX. And that stands for Post Exchange or Base Exchange for those of you that weren't, you know, in the military. But anyway, I went there and I found his greatest hits volumes. I think it was volumes 1 and 2 or whatever. I picked them up. I got them, went back home, or went back to the barracks, and I listened to Stevie Ray Vaughan for the rest of the evening. So that got me into the blues. So I would say I was 18 years old when I got into blues. Before that, like I said, it was country music, rock and roll, and then Stevie Ray.
Yeah, and before we got on the show, we were kind of talking a little bit, and you were saying the history of how
Rock and roll, yeah. So rock and roll was born um, and popular. This is the best way to say this. I'm trying to remember which show I saw this on, but and I'm trying to remember which band it was that was talking about it. But rock and roll was born in the 70s because people were getting tired of disco, or at least all the musicians were. They were starting to get frustrated that these beats were just being create. They were repetitive beats, and I don't want to call out any other genres of music now, but you know,
right.
uh, just I guess drum kit feel, and so musicians were frustrated with that, and so they said, well, let's get into the studio and make some real music, right? Let's put our instruments down. So that's I can't remember which band I watched a documentary or something on Netflix, and the bands were talking about how uh, um, rock and roll was born in the 70s because of that.
Right. What's the first song you ever wrote?
I knew you were going to ask me this question. The answer is I don't remember. Uh,
Well, can you tell me the story about your song Hope?
yes, I can. So, Hope was it. So, Hope is the song that I probably spent the most time on the lyrics of that song than any other song I've ever, sat down and wrote. Most of the songs that I write they literally come to me in just minutes. I'll write the whole song usually within less than 30 minutes. And I've wrote a bunch of songs. I've wrote more songs than I will ever record. Uh, and that's why I don't know what my first song is. I couldn't go back and tell you, that's the reason, because I have so many. Um, but Hope was the one that I spent so much time. Like, it took me, if I had to put it in hours, I don't even know how to. I know that I spent 3 years working on that song in the studio alone. But the lyrics were, it it was weeks of, if you put all the time together, hour after hour. It's not like I sat every day and all day work on the song or anything, but I would spend an hour or two here, an hour or two there, trying to write the song.
So where do you like to go when you write? Do you like go out into nature? Do you just kind of hunker down in your room? Like do you have a writing spot?
I do not. Sometimes it'll be 3 o'clock in the morning, and I woke up because I had a dream I was playing on stage, and on stage when I was dreaming, I sang this lyric, and and um and then I would wake up and I would remember it and write it down. And sometimes I would, write the whole song in the middle of the night after just waking up. So
Can you
I mean,
think of a song that comes to mind that you wrote off of a dream?
yes, uh, which I took offline, by the way. It's called "Girl You Surround Me." That was the name of the song. It was the first one I ever did that way. Uh,
Interesting. It's so cool. It's so cool how like even subconsciously our minds are still processing information and working like that.
yeah, I think your subconscious mind is probably a lot more active when you're sleeping than it is when you're awake. And so
For sure.
mine certainly is.
Right.
But hope,
Okay.
I just hope is more of a story, and I guess this is why it was so hard to write. It's a story about me, and I wanted to write the story that way. But if you hear the songs, you read the lyrics, it doesn't look that way. It looks like it's about somebody else, but it's really about me.
Hmm.
I tried to put myself into context, and it was I guess that's why it was so hard to write. And you would think you know yourself better than anybody else, right? But
We are also our own worst enemies, though.
I know, I know, I know, and so that makes it a little, yeah. I don't know if
So,
you're critiquing your behavior or whatever, but it's there's something there that it makes it more difficult, you know.
so out of all of the songs that you've wrote, and we all know songs are stories, which one is your favorite story?
That I wrote or that I sing.
Oh, well, you can give the both since you opened up the door.
um, I think Cast a Spell is my favorite one. No, actually, let me re-say that. All Weekend Long is probably my favorite one to play musically, and then that I wrote. Right, I
Right.
guess Cast a Spell is my favorite one that I wrote also that I like to sing, and so the ones that I did not write, Cruising in My Pickup Truck. That was wrote by Howard Nolan, who also wrote Blue Tick Hound, by the way.
I got to talk to him. He's a sweet gentleman.
Oh yeah, Howard is yeah, he's great. Nicest man you'll ever meet. Uh, he hit me up out of the blue one day on Facebook. He's like, "Hey man, I've been trying to find a singer to, you know, uh, put some music to my song. You think you?" He said, "Do you think you can do it?" I said, Howard, I'm not. I've never done that. I don't know if I can do it. And then he sent me the lyrics to uh, "Cruising in My Pickup Truck," and within 5 minutes, I had a melody wrote to it. I don't know how to describe it, but Howard, when he sends me lyrics and I read them, like musically, I can pick up on what he wrote. So it's pretty interesting. I've never been able to do that, but with Howard, I can do that for some reason.
Yeah, he is so sweet and I think as far as like musically questions, unless you have something to add to that, we kind of need to segue into like what we're doing together because we do have a lot of events coming up. And when I was talking to him, like I was talking to him about how we are doing that event together for the fundraiser for Billy Joe Shaver's statue, and that I am promoting a lot of songwriters. Well, there are also a lot of songwriters that are not singers, and I feel like they should also be getting some of that spotlight, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I told him to basically I gave him the little what the interview would entail and told him to come up with a story so that he can get comfortable with it, and maybe we can get him to bring his story on here. um because I just think that it's kind of cool, and I feel like because there's people like um Billy Joe Shaver. I mean, obviously, he's a legend in himself, and everybody knows his name because he wrote songs that he actually performed his own, and as well as Willie Whalen and Elvis. Um, but I mean, there are a lot of songwriters out there that just they never want to perform, and I feel like they still.
Can you hear me?
Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Wow, that was interesting. I just kicked myself out of my own studio. I'm glad that I didn't cut the live off. Y'all, I can mess stuff up real quick, let me tell you. I am famous for losing stuff that is sitting right next to me.
Yeah. Well, I was about to walk into a restaurant there, and so I thought maybe the music playing kicked us out for some reason or something. I don't know.
Oh man, oh man. So yeah, we'll make this really fast so that you can get in there and eat, but we do need to tell everybody that June 15th at Marty's Place in Mahia, and correct me if I said that wrong because I've said it wrong a million times to the point where I've been told that if I keep saying it like I've been saying it in Texas, I'm gonna get kicked in the face by a Texan. So y'all let me know if I said that right this time or not. Um, but that is happening at Marty's Place June 15th. It's going to be an all-day thing, cornhole from noon to 4, music from 4 to 8. We actually, I believe, are going to have a Billy Joe Shaver friend on stage reunion from 7 to 8. And then Bad Boy Leroy's bringing the whole freaking crew because Cruising in My Pickup Truck releases June 14th. So we're doing a single release party from 8 to 12, and I'm definitely looking forward to that show. And then you're giving away your cowboy hat you've been sporting around for how long you've been wearing that hat?
Oh man, I've had that hat since Afghanistan. One of my friends bought it for me. Oh, I played on stage a bunch in Afghanistan too, believe it or not. We used
Oh,
to play all of
nice.
our big events over there. It was an awesome time.
So
Uh,
your birthday party is at
so I have at Rhinestone, and I think that is my actual birthday. The Rhinestone Saloon is July 26th. So yeah, we'll be doing a show there. I'm going to be at that show. I'm gonna give my hat away. So I've
Yeah,
had
so
that hat for
whoever
a long.
comes out to the Rhinestone on July 26th for Bad Boy Leroy's actual birthday party might win his hat. He's been toting around. Everyone's been seeing him wear it on stage. It's going to be possibly yours if you're in the crowd. If you catch this hat, he's going to sign it and take a picture with you afterwards. So that's his birthday party, June 26th. June 27th, he's going to be joining me out at
July,
the
July,
Hilltop. July.
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 Yeah, let's say yeah. Make sure you get that.
July 26th at the Rhinestone. July 27th at the Hilltop Barn. I guess I was stuck on June with the Texas State Songwriters still.
Yeah,
The talent search that we're doing for the Billy Joe Shaver. So the July dates absolutely, and check out your website for your upcoming tour dates. Right? What's your website?
yeah. So well, I have them in a couple places. July. I have the on Facebook. So Bad Boy Leroy. You search that on Facebook, you'll see all of my events are up there. And if for some reason you can't find them there, it's badboyleroy.live, as in live music, not .com, .live. So, uh,
Aha.
yeah, a little different.
Yes, and
Uh,
you have merch and stuff up on there?
um, I do, but most of my merch is through Amazon. Uh, it makes it easier to do that for me. So, uh, you know,
How did they just look up Bad Boy Leroy on Amazon.com and they can
yep,
find all your swagger?
that's it. All you gotta do is
What
search that. If it
what
doesn't show,
else do they what
I did
else do
something.
they need to know? Go ahead.
Oh no, I was saying that if you search Bad Boy Leroy on Amazon and my merch doesn't show up, I did something wrong.
Yeah, and you better let him know about it so he can fix his mistakes. Please and thank you very much. Find this man on Spotify, add him to your playlist. We don't want to feed the beast, but we're going to play with the tools that we got. So go hit him up, listen to that on repeat. Listen to him while you can because this man ain't going to leave his songs up there forever. Sorry about your luck. Um, hopefully he has a legacy contact and we can have them all back when the time comes. Hopefully not for a long time to come, but if you like his music, you like his story, support it. Go hit those play buttons on Spotify. Our artists have to have over 1,000 spins for each song or they're getting kicked off the platform. So make sure you are going over to that platform, hitting that subscribe button, follow button, whatever freaking button they have over there, adding them to your playlist and jamming to them every day. Anything you want to tell the crowd before you go?
You know what? Chase your dreams. That's all I can say.
Absolutely. It's your story. It's your life. You can't let anyone live it for you, and you shouldn't live it for anyone else. Go out there, do what you need to do. Don't try to fit into the mold. You weren't created that for that. And have a great one, guys.
All right. Talk to you later, Cynthia.